You're listening to the DC Comics Chronicles, where we cover every adventure from the streets of Gotham to the skies of Metropolis and into the depths of Atlantis. With your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
This is your DC Comics Chronicles host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast, Donnie. Donnie, we have a special episode coming up. Why don't you tell the viewers and listeners about what they're going to see in just a few minutes?
We're going to talk to one of the fastest rising stars in comics. That is artist Skylar Patridge, who was the artist on Artemis Wanted as well as The Trial of the Amazons.
Yeah, we just did the interview, obviously, that you're going to hear. And she's fantastic, such a nice person. So we hope you enjoy the interview, and we hope you support the work that she's done, the work that she will do, because again, she was really gracious with us. She was awesome, and we think that you'd like her work. And also, some of the stuff that she's going to be doing that she briefly touches on in the episode, we'll eventually going to be covering. So definitely, to be caught up for when we do those episodes, you're going to want to get her work.
And she's working on a lot of diverse projects, not just DC.
Yeah.
Creator-owned stuff and some independent stuff. Yeah. So look her up. If you have lots of interest in comics, you won't be disappointed.
And also, to save time and not to bog her time down with our ramblings about our social media pages and this and that, we're going to do that here. So after the interview, if you want to follow us, or now before the interview starts, you can. So, Donnie, where do they track you down on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and TikTok as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern.
And if you want to follow me, it's at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. The podcast network has its own Twitter page at MMMPDC. We also have a Facebook group, which is somewhere in the description below. Click that. I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there if you like. So there's our socials. Like, subscribe, follow, do all that fun stuff. And on the other side of this message, you're going to hear and see, if you're watching the vidcast portion, our interview with Skylar. So stay tuned.
In the words of the Joker, and here we go.
Welcome to another episode of the DC Comics Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me is my co-host, Donnie, the Emerald Enthusiast himself. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, comic book fans? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy, the podcasting machine, the big nerd in green. It's the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're here today with a special guest.
Indeed we are. You set it up, so go ahead, give her one of your classic introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all beings of the Omniverse, please welcome the artist on Resonant, Trial of the Amazons, and Artemis Wanted. This is the stupendous Skylar Patridge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm a wrestler, like a pro wrestler, and that's amazing.
That's his whole thing.
We talk wrestling all the time.
So there it is. If you ever want to use it, like I said, as an answering machine, as an intro to a Comic-Con, feel free to take it with you.
That's a recording at my table. Yeah.
Again, thank you for joining us. We're really happy to have you and honored to have you here. And it's a pleasure for us. So thanks for making the time for us.
Thank you.
So we'll start with some questions. And tell us about your introduction to the world of comic books. What made you want to make this a career?
Well, comic books, I think I got introduced to comic books really young. I had an older brother, and so video games, comic books, all that was definitely influenced by him, and just kind of always gravitated back to comics. And I want to say probably like X-Men animated series and Batman animated series were big. Like, I was already kind of peripherally interested in comics as a little kid, and then those kind of like pulled me in, and I wanted to start seeking out comics more and reading more about them. So yeah, early age, started reading comics and being interested in all things like that. And my art just sort of naturally gravitated that way because I've been drawing since I was little, could hold a pencil. So yeah, having that sort of influence young definitely influenced my art. So I kind of always wanted to draw comics, always wanted to tell stories, and that was the most natural outlet for me to try to do that, was visually. And so they've kind of always been in my life. I've kind of ebbed and flowed in reading them, but I've always kind of drawn them in some way. And then I didn't really think about making it a career until I was well into adulthood and had other jobs in other career fields, but decided to give it a go about, I believe this is my 6th or 7th year. I think it's my 6th year as pursuing comics as a career, my 7th year freelancing. So it's relatively new in the spectrum of, or in the, the scope of how long comic careers can take to really take root. But yeah, it's been about 6-7 years of pursuing comics as a career.
Awesome.
Well, that leads into our next question. When is the moment that you knew that art was going to be your life as a career?
As a career, probably, maybe within the last couple of years.
Okay.
I would say I've always wanted to do art. I think when I was a kid, when I was in high school and college, that was kind of a dream, but I didn't know how to do it. Most adults would kind of tell me like, try it, but it's going to be really hard. And so I didn't really pursue it as a viable option for my career, my future, until probably maybe the last 4 or 5 years. And then it was kind of a go for broke situation of just like, we're in this far, let's see what we can do. And I'm incredibly grateful. In the last few years, I've had some amazing opportunities come my way, and it's felt a little more like, hopefully there's a little longevity to it.
Okay.
Awesome. So
well, can I tell you just the moment that I remember seeing your drawing of Lena Luthor on Twitter?
Oh.
And it was one of the most amazing things. It looked like she walked right out of the TV series. And then I was like, wait a minute, Patridge, I know that name. And I realized I had the DC Pride book from 2021, where
okay.
you did the question, the Renee Montoya story. And I was in here and I was just like, where is it? I got to find it. I want to read it again now. And I was absolutely transfixed by that Lena Luthor drawing. And since then, like, I've been on your website. I check your Twitter every day. Your artwork is so amazing. So
thank you.
I'll stop gushing for now, and I'll start gushing again later.
By all means, continue.
two things with that, Donnie. You shocked me. I thought it was going to be something Green Lantern related because as everybody could see your background. So my default is whatever it's about Donnie. Okay, Green Lantern, and then if it's not that, well, I'm lost. So
she was supposed to do a story about Alan Scott, and that was part of the round robin, and it didn't win. Damn
it! Don't remind me about those.
You will get a little bit of it though. So they're gonna compile those together. I don't think that's a secret. Okay. They're gonna compile those together, so you'll actually get to see the beginnings of that story, and maybe there's some life in it down the road.
Like, can't they just release all? Like, they give us these the round robin thing, and it's like, I want all of these. Like, selfishly, it's like,
I know. I had the same thing.
Give them all to me. Like, I want to give these people money, but they don't want to take my money. It's like, take my money. I'm giving it to you. I want to give it to you, but you don't want to take it. So it's like, I don't know. But here's a 2-part question. As an artist, what is the most challenging aspect of being an artist, and what's the most rewarding?
Most challenging for me, I think, probably is staying focused. That's just a life problem, though. I think I tend to have focus issues. So trying to learn how to organize my time and prioritize tasks effectively. Because, doing art for a living, there's all of the not fun stuff that goes into that, like taxes and scheduling and correspondence. And a lot of that can distract from work that you have to do. And that's, any kind of job, you've got the stuff that isn't as fun, and then you've got the meat of what you want to do and why you're there. But yeah, trying to keep all my ducks in a row is definitely the most challenging part of the professional side of being an artist. From a more like literal sense, what's the most challenging thing to making art, I think, is sometimes probably I would say maybe sitting down and seeing an idea through, because as an artist, I tend to have a lot of ideas that don't always get fleshed out. Sometimes, you know, I've got pages and notebooks and folders full of like ideas that I didn't flesh out or don't have time to get to. And so I think sometimes seeing an idea from beginning to end can be really challenging. And so, you know, when you hold a comic book in your hand, it feels like a real accomplishment because, you know, you finished it. And comics in general are just really, really hard. So having that in your hand, it always feels like a real victory. And so I guess that would answer your second question, would be holding that book in your hand and seeing the end result of all the work that you put into it. That's definitely the most rewarding.
Awesome.
Well, Adam and I are both huge fans of Artemis Wanted. That one shot was just amazing. Yeah. I love all of the art in the woods, like the wintry woods.
Thank you.
And the thing that you do that I think is so amazing, that sets you apart, the facial expressions, especially on women. You can convey like multiple complex emotions through the way you draw. And I know that I like that story in particular because Artemis was just Artemis was so like resigned to what she had done. And yet she had Donna after her with all these angry expressions. And at the same time, you're drawing monsters and things like that. Tell us what the creative process was for that book.
Well, I mean, I worked with Vida Ayala on that, and Vida is a dream collaborator to work with. So they delivered a script that had all those elements in place as far as the what Artemis was wrestling with and what kind of supernatural element was going to be thrown into the mix. And so additionally, Vida was very much just like, take these emotions, you know, the grief that Artemis is feeling, the resignation that Artemis is feeling, and go with it. And so, you know, along with my editor and Vida, they kind of just encouraged me to lean into those emotions a lot. And that's definitely my favorite part, I think, of drawing comics, is trying to hit those emotional beats really hard. I love fight scenes. I love, you know, action. Yeah. The fight scene in the woods was definitely one of my favorite parts to draw in that book. But in addition to the other side of that, I very much like to hit those quiet moments, because comics do tend to be they're quick. You know, you can read a comic relatively fast. So I like to try to slow readers down and push those emotional elements a little bit more. And this was an excellent book to do that on, because there were so many conflicting emotions. Because, you know, Artemis is running, which doesn't seem like, you know, she feels resigned, but she's also afraid, and she feels devastated at what she's done, and that she's broken and ruined. And so I feel like those are really strong emotions to have to try to work with, and getting that freedom from the editorial and from writing to just kind of run with those was definitely foundational for that book, you know.
Yeah, for me, it also conjured associations with Robert Frost's The Road Less Traveled.
Yeah.
As well as Stephen King's Dreamcatcher. So there was a lot of things going on in my mind at the time. So
nice.
But yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, no, for me, what you were saying, Donnie, about the facial expressions, they were all you know, all three of the main characters that we saw were so distinct from each other. And the other thing you talk about, the fight scene in the woods, like the different locations that were used in this book, like the variety was incredible. And so yeah, and the fight scenes you mentioned, there was one panel where I think it was Donna that gives Artemis like an elbow.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that looks like it hurt.
Good. Yeah,
you can feel that. Yeah,
I was like, ow, and it didn't. Like, I'm reading, and I'm like, ow, that hurt. That probably hurt.
Yeah, I feel like that is a challenge a lot for me, specifically with fight scenes, is making them feel like you're kind of there, and it's not opposed thing, that there's an element of immersion in it. And so I'm glad that it felt that way.
So you were saying you'd like to slow down the reader's experience. You definitely did, because I had to stop and look at the art and just like try and catch everything, right? Whereas sometimes you're right, depending on what book it is and what the art looks like, you'll leaf through it faster, right? So I definitely took my time with this one. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Job well done. But I know you were saying that you're relatively new in terms of the amount of years you've been in the industry, but who are some of your professional influences?
I mean, I think they kind of, within comics, I would say, I mean, Jim Lee was definitely highly formative for me. Was definitely, I think, my probably gateway artist into comics as a little kid in the 90s. And so I emulated Jim Lee for years as a kid. All of my comics tended to look a lot like Jim Lee stuff. And then, I got a little older and started reading different comics, not as many cape stories, reading a little bit more indie stuff, and found Phil Noto. Phil Noto was a big inspiration for me as a kid. And more recently, I would say artists like Joelle Jones is hugely inspirational to me. Becky Cloonan, also hugely inspirational. So that was dream come true material to work on Trial of the Amazons with both of them on the book. But yeah, those two were actually two artists and writers who, as an adult, kind of dipping my toe back into comics, they were hugely inspirational in me wanting to really go for it and try to do it as a professional. And so most recently, those two. Additionally, like Chris Samney is a huge inspiration for me. I marvel at his work all the time. And there are countless other ones on top of that. Those are some of the big highlights right there. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I really, the things that stick out to me, again, when I see you draw faces, it's the life in the eyes and the way that you draw, like, lips being bitten and what that means in many different, instances. And just, the cocked heads, and sometimes the way that it's a little like off center intentionally to give you like the dynamic of the picture. I look at all this stuff, and if you haven't noticed by now, I mean, artists and writers in comics, you guys are my rock stars. I mean, that, it's like, somebody hears a band and they're like, oh, I'm going to be a fan for life. I see your art and I'm like, I want this for the entire rest of my life, as much as I can get.
Thank you so much.
But like I said, I look at your Twitter and I see all of these pictures and I'm like, how does she instill so much life into each one?
I think usually what I tell people is that I am, I don't know if you've ever seen Mean Girls from like 20.
Oh, yeah.
There's a scene in that where they're talking to a girl and she's like crying and she's really awkward and she's like, I just have a lot of feelings. And I feel like that's me when I make comics. It's like, I have a lot of feelings and I want to infuse them into comics and hopefully make, the reader feel something in addition to what I'm feeling when I do it. So I think I tend to be a pretty in tune with my own emotions on that level. So it usually winds up showing up in my art.
Donnie, you tagged me in her the Catwoman image that she did on Twitter, and all I was thinking was like, one, is that a commission, or two, are you doing something with Catwoman in it? And if you can't say it, that's fine.
Yep, I'm doing something with Scott Bryan Wilson for Catwoman and Batman. So I don't think that's supposed to be. I think I can say that. I've seen it announced and talked about a little bit elsewhere. So
okay, all right, okay. I'll definitely be looking out for that one. So that's
yeah. We'll review that here on the podcast, Adam.
Awesome.
That'll definitely be a day one buy for me. So
perfect.
All you have to say is Batman and Catwoman, and it's like, all right, where and how much is it, and where, when, like, so yeah.
It should be like I said, I believe it's been announced, or if it hasn't, it's being announced this weekend at New York.
There was something at Comic-Con from New York Comic-Con that you're working on. It's that new event that starts in January. I think I saw your name attached to it.
Yes, I didn't know. So cool.
The Lazarus, thing.
Yeah, I'll be doing. I'm not sure what exactly it's called, but the larger anthology. But I'll be doing a Dreamer short in that. So.
Awesome.
The Catwoman thing will be next month for the holiday special.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, we got to get that, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
We got to get that.
Hold on. Batman, Catwoman, and like Christmas time. It's like that echoes Batman Returns. So for me, I'm like, I'm in. Like,
there's I think you'll appreciate it.
yeah,
I'm calling my local comic shop as soon as we get off here, so I can order that.
You don't know what it's called. It's like, whatever that is, just put me down.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but like, just on the side, that Batman Returns is like every year on Christmas Eve, like
Right.
after we've done the family meal thing, like
I love that.
11 o'clock at night. It's like, that's my Christmas movie. That
I
leads
love
me into
when
Christmas.
people have like non-traditional Christmas movies as their
it's
Christmas
like
movies.
that's it. So that's mine. But yeah.
So speaking of future projects, you have a creator-owned book that you're not only drawing but co-writing that is coming out in 2023. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we're actually I'm co-writing and drawing a book with Jordan Elseka. He has done he actually has a book coming out from IDW called Cooking with Monsters, and he's got a bunch of stuff in the works as well. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on down the road. But yeah, we're working on a creator-owned project with IDW that will likely be announced early next year. And it is a erotic spy thriller.
Okay.
So dark, bloody, sexy story, sort of a cat and mouse thriller with lots of James Bondian Atomic Blonde vibes. So that's definitely going to be a big chunk of next year for me, and hopefully people are excited to see a little bit of my writing chops. So
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've noticed you do well too, like vampires and kind of, bloody, unsettling scenes. I've seen some of that, and I'm like, wow. Yeah, I showed my wife one time. I was like, look how cool this is. Yeah. She's like that really looks dark, and I'm like, oh, it's awesome. Look at this. Sorry. Anyway,
I feel like people tend to see my emotional stuff, and they kind of associate me as being somebody who does more of that, and then they see the horror art that I do, which is also.
You do lots of horror stuff. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I haven't actually gotten to do a ton of like sequential horror stuff. I've gotten to do some covers for horror books, and then I just gravitate toward, spooky, creepy stuff as well. So I always take the opportunity to draw it when I can.
I'm just gonna
go ahead.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. Not that anybody from Boom Studios is listening, but can you get her on a Buffy book? Because I don't know, that would be like a match made in heaven. It sounds like so. They should give you a call and definitely put you on one of those books.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
But just before we wrap up, we know we've gotten to know a little bit about your comic interests and your process and all that. But outside of the world of comics, who are you? What are your interests? Give us a little bit of that kind of stuff.
I feel like within the last couple of years, the comics is who I am. It's kind of an immersive career field, so that's very much where I spend a lot of my time. But I would say outside of comics, I tend to be. I'm an outside person. I like to go on hikes. I've got 2 dogs who are incredibly energetic and need to be walked all the time, so I'm usually out hiking with them. I'm also a big fan of horror, so horror books, horror movies, this month is like my natural habitat, so I'm excited to get into horror movies this month. But yeah, those are kind of the big things for me right now. Other than that, I tend to spend a lot of time doing other art, music. I mean, kind of all the things that a lot of people listen to and do outside of their careers. But comics, since it's kind of an immersive field, I feel like it's my whole being right now. Hopefully, as things kind of settle and I get onto my projects next year, maybe I'll get a little breather and a little break time to do some things that aren't comic related.
Okay.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add, Donnie, before we?
Oh no, I am so thankful that you agreed to come on this show.
Oh,
I was so nervous to message you. I just it took me days. I was like, what do I want to say?
That's why I let you do these things, so you can.
Yeah, I was so nervous. I'm like, because I'm like, she looks like she's really, really nice, but you just never know. You contact somebody out of the blue like that, and I was like, please be nice, please be nice. And you were just so gracious, and Yeah, I was. And honestly, today I was really nervous this morning. I was like, you can't hyperventilate on the podcast, act like a weirdo. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for reaching out. No, I mean, I've definitely seen you pop up and share my work, and it means the world. So you're always welcome to reach out anytime.
Yeah,
you weren't weird or anything. This was
well, that's the way. If you ever get a Green Lantern book full stop, then he's going to start messaging you questions at all hours of the day. Just ask Jeff Thorne. He'll tell you.
Yeah. Ask Jeff Thorne or Daryl Banks, Ron Mars are all like, oh yeah, right. We're tired of that guy asking us questions.
No, but honestly, this was awesome, and hopefully you can come back at some other time. But
absolutely, I would love to.
In the meantime, if people want to check out your social medias or your website, now's the chance. Plug away. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm on social media, but I don't have all the TikToks and stuff. Twitter and Instagram are pretty much where you'll find most of my stuff, at Sky Patridge for both of those. And then you can contact me on my website. It's just skylarpatridge.com, and it's Patridge.
Awesome.
You also have a Ko-fi if somebody wants to donate.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yeah.
If you want to buy me a coffee.
Yeah, which I had before. I was like, I owe this to her.
Now that I know you have one of those, I'll definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Coffee's always welcome.
Right.
That's a definite.
Yeah.
But everybody, you guys know where our socials are, so we're not going to regale you with all that. It's in the description. Click all those. You can find us and follow us and yell at us and tell us our opinions wrong. Whatever you want to do, go for it. But in the meantime, thank you, Skylar. It was a pleasure to have you, and we hope to talk to you soon. And we'll be on the lookout for all your projects.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, so much.
All right, and until next time, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed bringing it to you. And until next time, so long, everyone.
So long, everyone.